Welcome to Simply Walk the Talk. Our bodies and minds adapt to what we do most of the time. If you want to change your body and mind, you must change what it is you do most of the time. This podcast explores all things health, wellness, fitness, lifestyle, and biohacking. Stay tuned as we explore various thoughts, methods, and experiences from a multitude of conversations between our interesting guests and experts through many fields of work. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Simply walk the talk. Simply walk the talk.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Simply Walk the Talk. I am your host, JoshuaJHolland, and today we have Mr. Chrisman Hughes on the show. Now, Chrisman is the president of Bullworker, a leader in home fitness since 1962. He's an avid fitness enthusiast and is considered to be responsible for the evolution of Bullworker's role in the world of isometrics and dynamic training. There are a million ways to improve your fitness, but the key to seeing results with your health and wellness is sustainability and consistency. I like that. Bullworker has set itself apart from the others in the industry by providing the most practical equipment with a simple approach to fitness using science-backed techniques for fast and effective training. Mr. Chrisman Hughes, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Joshua. This is a lot of fun. Certainly enjoy watching and seeing what you put together, and getting the invite has been an honor. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, I'm really happy to have you here. And speaking of content, I've been really noticing just how well you've kind of pulled this brand around, because for a long time there wasn't much talk, at least in my circle, about Bullworker and isometrics and things like that. And long story short, I had one of the original classic, I guess it was the classic bow. I had one when I was a little boy, I remember, and I got this. I think either I found it or my dad found it at a garage sale, and
Oh
I'm
man.
like, what is this thing? And I think it had the red handles, and it was the silver looking metal, and you're pushing this thing and pulling on it, and I didn't really understand what I was doing, but I just kind of thought like it felt good after I did it. It felt like I did 100 push-ups, no matter how long I used this thing. But that we would say that was like the old school way of training, and that, getting things at a garage sale is definitely old school. But now I see, you're on Instagram crushing it with these beautiful videos and whatnot. So let's talk about your role in all this, man, and how you've gotten here today.
You got it. Thank you for the kind words and the energy you're bringing. So
Yeah.
certainly been a fun ride. I would say, kind of condensing it for all the listeners, just to understand a little bit about my history coming into Bullworker. Bullworker, as you mentioned, 1962, a little older than me, but and that kind of happened because in the 60s, after a 10-year thorough study, the Max Planck Institute discovered that isometric training is the fastest way to build strength. They put it up against a ton of different other techniques, and it performed. And so at the time, it was a lot of big equipment. It was either medical or research facilities, and that was when the Bullworker was invented as a home opportunity for people. And now in the 70s and 80s, you fast forward a little bit, that was a Bullworker heyday. I mean, international presence all over the world. And then you fast forward even more, and now it's exchanged 2-3 hands, and now here comes my father, John Hughes. And now we're in the late 90s, and so I'm still a little kid, not really lifting or anything. I think I started lifting right about then. And then I was like, "Oh, Dad, these products are really cool, but they're not me." And then I'm in high school and college. I'm lifting weights and doing my thing. And I mean, I think everyone can relate. When you first start working out, you kind of see some muscles developing. You're feeling good. You're feeling strong. And there's just something about a gym culture too that gets people pumped, right? And so I was just
Mm.
kind of always like, yeah, dad, that's cool. That's cool. But I never really used it. And then after college, I was heading to go teach in North Carolina. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm done with the weights. I don't want to put the time and money into it anymore. I know teaching is going to be incredibly hard, which it was. I mean, a beautiful experience, but so difficult. So shout out to all you teachers out there and how important you are to everything in the future. But and so now I have the whole power pack. That's the Bullworker you described, a few other products, and I'm like, wow, this stuff really works. This is good. I'm busting out workouts in 30, 40 minutes, feeling great. And I lost a little bit of weight. I kind of trimmed some fat, got more defined, better mobility, and I just wasn't carrying around that extra bulk. And so now I'm like a believer. I'm like, wow, this stuff's pretty good. Apologies, Dad, for not like giving you the time of day, but I mean, what are kids for, right? They gotta
Right.
bully the dad a little bit. And
Yeah.
so then I take off to South America. I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to go kind of have a little exploration in my life. I just went through school, teaching, got a little break. And all I brought along was just the isobo. And it fits in your pocket, fits, it was the light thing that fit. And I spent 8 months on the road and only using this. And I'm like, wow, I'm pretty blown away at how good a shape I'm still in. This is pretty incredible. So I come back and I'm like, hey, what are you doing with this? Because this is his invention. So this is all new. And he's like, I'm focusing on my other products, and I was sitting there thinking, okay, well, give me a shot. I think this has some potential. He goes, go for it. So now I'm back in the States. I'm working a full-time job. Before and after work, I'm like, okay, you're still stuck in the 90s. We need to update this website. We need to rebrand. We need to give this thing a
Mm.
little facelift. So now I'm starting to focus on things, and I'm focusing on the isobo. And I'm like, wow, this is harder than I thought to push this product. It's like the best thing ever. Why aren't people buying it? And
Right.
then I realized like, oh, like we've got these other products and that's kind of our brand. And those actually have a lot of opportunity and they're the lower hanging fruit. So shout out to all the people that are completely just self startup because I had a brand that I was working with and it was that difficult. So all
Yeah.
you guys out there, congratulations, keep moving. And then I start seeing the opportunities. And then now, fast forward, I'm like, okay, I'm doing a New Year challenge. I don't know, a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and I just used Bullworker gear again, and I'm transforming my body. I'm not only a believer in an opportunity as a career, but a believer in this is stuff is excellent for anyone out there. And then
Mm.
fast forward now, 7 years later, continuously with that improvement cap on, taking a few hats off now here and there to delegate a little bit and not wear so many, which is why you're seeing some of the stuff just kind of becoming a little more professional, a little more consistent and everything. Because running it all on your own show is pretty difficult. So now here we
Yeah.
are, and on your podcast sharing the story, and it's been a fun journey, and I see it continuously growing and huge light at the end of the tunnel. So
Well, it's amazing, and I definitely applaud you because again, it's kind of something we were talking about before I pushed record, which is me myself being a content creator, and like many others out there that are understanding what it takes to be a good content creator. It takes work, but nowadays you if you're a business, you got to be on social media, and you got to be on social media in the way that people want to interact with it. And I feel like you're definitely doing that because every time I see some content come out that you guys put up, I think like, oh yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, that's the reason why I ended up purchasing the power pack, which we'll talk about here in a moment. In fact, I'll share the website at some point. But for everyone that is listening, we hopefully you come to the video because we're going to do some stuff. We're going to show you some examples of how you can engage with Bullworker and some of the methodology around Bullworker, whether or not you have one of the devices or not. So stay tuned because when we do our Pomodoro break, we're definitely going to do some cool stuff. And then at the end of the show, we're going to offer discounts, or we're even going to do some giveaways. So just make sure to stay tuned, stay listening, pause it if you have to, and come back to it. Okay. So,
beautiful.
Mr. Hughes, so you kind of broke down the sort of the legacy that was sort of built, and you kind of took this by the reins, and now it is where it is here. Let's talk about, I guess, maybe some of the reasons why this is not as widely known as it could be, right? Because when you're speaking to me, you're preaching to the choir, right? I'm a believer. I've been a believer for a long time. I went through a series of months when my brother was showing me that he was doing some workouts with some guy on YouTube who was using a towel, and I thought my brother was insane until I tried it. And when I tried it, I became a believer. And so the way my mind works is like, well, if you can do it with a towel, then can you do it with your body? And can you do it with your hand? And so I started to kind of dive into isometrics, and then actually how I came back around to even finding Bullworker in the first place is I was doing some searches online because I purchased the ISO chain, and I thought the ISO chain was a
Mhm.
really cool apparatus because of what it can do in terms of showing you your strength, right?
Right.
Which I think is a great component to isometrics because it's kind of unheard of.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I also know that not everyone can afford an ISO chain, and not everybody can also. It's not as portable as like the ISO bow. So when I'm doing my search online, that's when ISO bow and ISO flow came up, and I ended up purchasing a few units because I was in Budapest and I was on set, and I knew I wanted the ISO chain or I wanted to work isometrics, but I didn't have anything that was portable enough until the ISO bow and ISO flow. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about kind of the importance of isometrics, but then why it's not so sexy and why it's hard to kind of promote it.
Yeah, you bet. I think so. Back when the studies came out, it was kind of this huge thing. And Bullworker was kind of that known brand in the 70s and 80s. People knew about it. I mean, wherever you were in the world, they probably have it. I have friends from Chile and all over the world, and they're like, "Yeah, I had one of those," and I'm like, "That's just so cool to hear. Like you're in South America or all over, and you had one too." And but then, as you know, I mean, the fitness industry, nothing's new under the sun. I mean, sure, there's like new innovative products that come out, but ultimately, resistance is what your body responds to, and it doesn't really know where it's getting it from. But there's fads that come and go, there are products that come and go. And the fitness industry, just like any other industry, they're like, well, wait, we can't really make money on isometrics. So maybe we need to kind of like push that under the rug a little bit or something because we're here to make money. And so that's when they started saying all these things about isometrics and kind of putting it down. So the fitness industry was in the sense kind of hiding isometrics.
Mm.
And what they would say are some things like, oh, well, you're only training that joint angle. And then studies went on to prove that no, you're not training that angle. You're actually training 15 plus or minus 15 degrees on both sides of the joint angle. And so
Mhm.
not only are you increasing your mobility as well, you're also able to break it into different joint angles to get through that full range of motion. And so now debunk that, right? And so then they keep going. And now I think fast forward in 2022, at least what I'm seeing is isometrics are making a comeback. And I think that's because it's such a powerful tool. And so many professionals are seeing like, well, wait a minute, why aren't we using this tool, this technique, I should say, that's so effective? I mean, it's been proven time and time again to build the strength the fastest, right? And to give an example, if you think about, let's just use a dumbbell curl, right? So if someone grabs a dumbbell and they start curling and they're doing the tonic motion, then they're never really hitting that joint angle for long. It's just split seconds. And
Mhm.
so as they're going through, those motor units are able to change throughout the range of motion. But when you're hitting an isometric hold, your body is engaging more muscle fibers, right? And so like the way I think about it is like imagine you have 100 little motor units, and right when you engage, the first one's up. He's called or she's called, and they're holding up that weight, and then that one steps out, too tired. Next one, next one, next one. And when you're doing an isometric, you're getting through like 96 of those 100.
Yeah.
But when you're doing the isotonic, you're not actually getting all of that muscle unit, motor unit engaged because it's
Mm.
constantly shifting. And so then another popular term thrown around right now is what? Time under tension, right? That's where a lot of people are saying your results are going to come from time under tension. Well,
Yep.
isometrics is exactly that, time under tension. And so I think that's what has really kind of been the journey of isometrics. They kind of peaked and then got shunned for a little bit, and then now they're back on the rise. And I think Bullworker is the pioneer of isometrics. Really brought it out to the world, showing its beauty, and I think people are adopting them again. And then the other thing about isometrics too is it's a mental strengthening thing too, because I mean, I have friends where they'll do a workout with me and they're like, I don't like this because it burns. And I'm like, yeah, but the burn is when the magic is happening.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think there's that real reality to it too.
You know, the thing that I would even add to that is, and I forget the name or the term of this, but there's a couple things that are also happening. One is um, you're not damaging the joints as fast, right? So like, we know that if we
Correct.
place 315 pounds on our back and we're back squatting, at some point, right, your body is going to really feel that in the joints, and you may go years without any kind of issue, or you may not. But the good thing about isometrics, it can be done with deadlifts, it can be done with all kinds of movements, which we'll go over, I'm sure. But you can do a lot of bang for your buck with very minimal amount of wear and tear on your joints. So that's one other addition that I think was huge for me. The other
Huge.
thing too is that you run less risk of hurting yourself because your body won't allow you to go beyond what you're capable of, right? So if you're
Hmm.
pulling, and there's a term for this, I forget what it's called, but like your body's only going to allow you to do what you're capable of doing, versus putting too much weight on a bar can crush you, right? Or hurt you,
Right.
but you can't hurt yourself by, I mean, unless you strain and you hold your breath and you pass out. Okay, maybe, right? But beyond that, it's like you're going to give as much as you can give, which is why I think it's pretty cool that you now have devices out there that show you a measurement. Because if I'm watching you pull your hands against each other, you can tell me that you're giving 100%, but how do I know that?
Right.
Right? And so
Yep.
sometimes what I do is, if we go through dynamic isometrics where we're moving with the pull, one of the things I like to listen to when we're doing the iso bow is that sound of that, that's where I know that you're still pulling. You're not just, faking the funk.
That's
So
right.
there's so many components to this, which is why I'm so thrilled, if you can't tell. And I wanted to bring you on the show because I'm like, to your point, everyone should know about this because everyone should be doing this at some point in their career or their life.
Agreed. Yeah, I think two things to add on to that is you mentioned the joint health and the kind of longevity approach, and that's why isometrics are great for people in rehab or prehab, but rehab because they're not getting the whole stretching, the eccentric concentric movement of the muscle, which is where injury can reoccur, right? So they strengthen in that joint position, which helps build the strength of the muscle, and then they can start building on to their program. But then it's also great for like people with arthritis, people that are either older or have joint pain, and now they don't have to go through that constant movement of the joint, and allowing themselves to still benefit from strength training, but avoid the discomfort and the pain that they're experiencing. And I think
Right.
that's important piece to the isometrics. But then, as you mentioned, I think what's beautiful about isometrics too, and we're seeing this in the Western world. I feel like the Western world and the Eastern world, we have two different concepts, right? Eastern world is a little more like technical, and they're generally a little more strategic and more of like a love for it, while the Western world is more like, I'm gonna go all out, 100%, be super sore, and then the next day I won't be able to move, but then I'll get back to it, right? And I think the
Right.
beautiful thing about isometrics too is it shows that you only need to use 60 to 80% of your max effort. And so that way,
Right.
now not only are you optimizing your gains, but you're also like able to perform at your lifestyle too, right? So you're
Right.
not super sore and you're able to do activities daily and take less wear and tear on your body. So I think that's another benefit of isometrics too, is just the concept of the mind muscle connection and the efforts that you're giving forth, and the ability to understand your body and the efforts you're doing more.
Right. Yeah, the well said. And just because I it was driving me crazy while I was trying to think about that term. But there's a like in isometrics, there's this maximum force output, right? And so
Okay.
like
Yep.
normally the nervous system puts protective blocks on your force output, and it only allows maximum force to be expressed when there is a legitimate load to be dealt with. Like an
Mm,
example is like pushing against a tree versus holding a tree from crushing you as it like falls over or comes down.
right.
So there's a zero loading reflex, which is really really cool, and that's what makes like if you can, you don't have to really understand it to benefit from it, and that's what's cool. But sometimes you have to just try it, and this is what I'm going to tell most people listening and watching the show is that you just got to try it. And once you try it, anytime I've given it to a client or I brought it, almost every single time they want to take it. Like, can I just have this? You know, I'm like, here's your code. You know what I mean? Like, here's your link, and don't forget to use the discount code. You know what I mean? Like, because it's
Absolutely.
like I always want to have it with me, but it really does make sense. And so okay, we've talked about the importance of isometrics, but if you are familiar with what the Bullworker looks like, you'll realize that that's not just an isometric device, right? So this comes back to that thing we were talking about in the intro, which is isometrics versus dynamic training. So, how did you kind of bring that into where it's at now?
Yeah. So definitely tons of help to John. John was always into isomotion, which is kind of the dynamic tension aspect. And for someone like me, and then you hear everyone kind of modern trend is all about the ROM, range of motion. You got to go through that whole mobility thing. And so I'm thinking like, yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely what we should do. And so now you see this concept of you hit the isometrics, maximize that engagement, but then let's do move through for a few reasons. One, to strengthen that mobility and that range of motion, but also to help increase the blood flow into those muscles. And that's going to give you more benefit from that isometric hold on top of it, right? And so now you have, I mean, you mentioned how this one's so simple, and so now you have you're pulling it, but it's like okay, a lot of time it is fun. Like, it kind of goes back to your question before. This is why have people not adopted it, or why don't you see it as much? And I think people are skeptical. There's so many weights, or so not weights. There's so many fitness products out there that some are gimmicks and some aren't. And
Yep.
so when you see our products, it's very easy to be skeptical and be like, well, what is that? It's just webbing, or I can use a rope or a towel. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, there's some strategy behind it. And then
Yep.
with our main product, they're like, well, what is that? That just looks like a toy. And so people get skeptical. But then once you put it in their hands, then at first they just pull, right? And they're like, okay, I feel that, but what? I can just pull and do this? You're like, no, pull and kind of move and go through your range of motion. And now all of a sudden the light goes off. They're like, wow, yeah, I feel that all over. I mean, I
Right.
love when I give it to someone and they're like, I feel it in my core, my back, my shoulders, everywhere. And so I think that's what really allowed the dynamic training to happen. And then I remember telling a friend when we were talking about cardio, and I was like, well, yeah, I like to just kind of play basketball for my cardio. I like to disguise working out if I
Me too. Me too.
can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and
Yeah.
that's what this does too, is it makes it more fun. It makes it more dynamic. It makes it a little more easy on you as an individual to not get bored. And all of a sudden, next thing you know it, you got a good training routine in there, and it didn't feel like it. So I think the more you can disguise it in a way, you don't want to run from it, you want to embrace it. But sometimes that's like the number one excuse, right? I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
So the more you can
Right.
disguise it to move and feel good, then the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. When you mentioned that the little story about or the comment about cardio and playing basketball and things like that. One, I'm a big basketball fan, and that's what I used to do for cardio. But anytime I get a response like that from someone in terms of like cardio, it's always kind of one of those moments that makes me smile because I say just sitting here, standing here, sitting, standing, talking, eating, we're doing cardio. our heart is working. The cardiovascular output is happening. What most people think we mean when we say cardio, though,
Right.
is elevated heart rate, right? Getting the heart rate up. But at the end of the day, what we should be aiming for is better cardiovascular output, which would be the flow, the blood flow, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we call it stroke volume. I'm sure you know this. Stroke volume should be the thing that we're focusing on, that we should maximize. And it's far harder to actually get good stroke volume while being at an elevated heart rate. So one of the best ways to improve your stroke volume is through isometrics and strength training, right? So
There you
when people
go.
talk to me about cardio, I always mention that, like, oh, if you want to work cardio, then we need to do heavy strength training and isometrics. They're like, what do you mean, like planks? I'm like, planks can be considered isometrics, but I mean real isometrics, old school isometrics. That's what I call it. And so,
Yeah.
and then it like lights their head up, and you find them going, oh man, like, okay, I think I see what you mean, and it's like, but if you want to get your heart rate up, we can do that too. We can go and go over there, but that's a different thing. That's working your
Right.
endurance. That's not necessarily improving your stroke volume. So just thought I would throw that out there anytime
Yeah.
someone
No,
talks to
big
me about
throw out.
cardio. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's like cardio, endurance, and aerobics. They all kind of get thrown in as the same, but they're all a little bit different.
Absolutely. So this is a really good time because we're about 25 minutes in. It's a really good time for the Pomodoro break. So I know we kind of prepped about that, and I think that's a great segue into what, from what we just talked about. So I'm going to grab my little kit over here.
You got it.
And why don't you explain for those at home, what we're doing? We're going to do a little
Certainly.
Pomodoro break.
And what are we targeting here? About 30 seconds?
Yeah, approximately 30 seconds or so. So I've got my little kit
Okay.
here, everyone. And it's got the pamphlets inside, which is really, really cool. I'll show all this. There's like a sheet to talk about different things you can do with the iso bow and the iso flow. And Chrisman has the iso bow in his hands, which I just got mine out of the case. So
There it is.
turn it. Yeah. So if you have one at home, grab yours out, because we're going to do something really, really quick. If you don't, Chrisman, what can they do?
We got some variations for you. So I think that's one of the things too on the product too, is like people are, oh, well, I could do that. And we say, great, grab a towel and use our resources. So same thing for you guys at home. If you have a towel or if you just have your hands, do it. So if we're pulling, all you have to do is grab your hands together and pull. And again, just like Joshua was saying, you are the only one who knows how hard you're pulling. We can't gauge it. You can't. You got to be honest with yourself. But 60 and 80% is all you got to do. So if you have that, you can just pull on your hands. If not, you can grab a towel or a rope or something along those lines. So I was sitting here. So one of the things I like to do for a little break is that posterior chain, get everything back up. So we're just going to put our hands out in front. Remember that variation, just simple here for you guys at home that don't have one. And we're just going to do a 7-second isometric hold. So keep those shoulder blades back, and we're just going to spread it apart. Ready? Here we go. 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. And that's going to help build up that upper back, posterior chain, posterior deltoids, pulling everything back upright. There you go. And then all those show muscles, we'll get some curls, triceps, and then finish with a little bit of a flow, get that blood flowing. So next thing we have is we're going to do a curl on one side, a tricep on the other. So you have this kind of protagonist, antagonist, and you're getting better bang for your buck. So we'll go for a curl, 7 seconds, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And switching up over to the other side. And everyone at home, you might notice I'm shaking. Shaking is completely fine. What you're doing is you're strengthening those neural connections. Me too. Here we go. 7, 1, 2, 3. Look at those guns. 4, 5, 6, 7. Perfect. And then last one, we'll just finish with a little bit of a flow. So you're going to pull it apart. Keep that tension. Again, those without the iso bow, you can do it with your hands. We're just going to pull it apart and just do a little bit of motion. go through some movement, 2 circles one way, and we'll switch directions. Nice.
I love
And then once we
this.
get back to the top up there, we'll finish out with just a little behind the back, pull it down, and back over the head. You can place it behind the back, just stretch those chests and shoulders out. Perfect. Beautiful.
Oh
How
man,
do you
that's
feel?
perfect. I love it. I really do. And this is cool getting this from the source. I feel honored to have a little
Free
mini session
refills.
with you. Yeah, and again, apologies to those who were only listening. If you want, come back and watch this, and or just look at all the show notes and stuff, because I'm going to link to the website and link to the Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So you can check out some of these videos. But I will say this: one of the things I love about you know any kind of company, especially any company that I happen to spend money with, I love packaging. I love to like consider packaging and what draws me into it. And you guys have your products packaged so well. It's almost like the Apple packaging of home fitness products. And then you've got these little cue cards and this little guidebook to kind of show you, enhance. It says enhance your flexibility, increase your strength, relieve your tension, improve your productivity, isobo. And there's a bunch of images of different stretches and different exercises and how to move through. And I mean, look, even legs, because a lot of people think, okay, yeah, I see you pulling on it with your hands, but like, what about my core and what about my legs? I mean, listen, I have two of these for a reason. I like to do deadlifts with it, you know. Um, I like to do like leg extensions, or like I'll do like um, heel raises, all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can get
Oh
really
yeah.
creative, and that's what I love about it. Yeah.
The
So,
ankle mobility, I think, is a long forgotten one too, where you put it over your foot and then you kind of isometrically flex and dorsiflex and kind of move through your ankles range of motion. That's going to
aha.
prevent a lot of injuries and strengthen a lot of people.
Okay. Yeah. So see, that one I haven't even considered. I don't know if it's on that list. I didn't go through it completely, but um, I
It
have
is and it's
noticed
not, and
that.
that's why. Sorry to cut you
No, no,
off.
I
Go
was, I
ahead.
was, no, I was just gonna say like that's also the reason why I was excited about your content, because I noticed that you're doing some things that may not necessarily be in this, because this is kind of it's still old school info from the original days or whatever, but like you're putting out some stuff that makes me go, oh, well, I have that at home, so I may as well try it. So
Absolutely. And
yeah.
that's why I love having people like you who get it. I mean, first of all, someone who understands fitness and biomechanics and then has a hunger for improvement and growth. Because a lot of times you find the fitness industry, they stick it inside the box and they can't get out. But when you have someone who's a little more open minded and they're like, okay, I understand how things work. Let's see how things can work for me. And that's why those booklets are really good for right out of the box. They're spiral, so they stay open, and you have something right out of the get go to follow along if you've never experienced anything with fitness, or if you have. But what I love about getting it in hands like yours is because almost every time someone shows me something new, I'm like, I haven't
Mm,
thought about that. Like, there it is. Let's go. I like it. And so
very cool.
I'm constantly playing with it and thinking about things and coming up with stuff too, and plenty outside of the book. And that's why we say, as corny as it might be, like imagination is the only limitation. I mean, that's
Mhm.
what it comes down to is if you're putting in some resistance, just move and you'll
Yeah.
find some places and you're like, wow, I didn't even think about that. So I appreciate your kind words that you're seeing some good stuff from me, but I'm excited to see what stuff you throw my way too.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do some stuff. We'll do some challenges together. I mean, I think like the thing that's also pretty impressive about you is, if you're watching the video, clearly you can see you're in very good shape. Um and and it was very compelling to hear your story about you being in South America and spending time only doing this. It's like it's not too dissimilar from someone realizing that they could just take a TRX strap and stay in relatively good shape, or a jump rope, or just body weight calisthenics, right? But when you
Absolutely.
have something this small that literally fits in the palm of my hand, right? It's like a no-brainer. And then the creativity, I think a lot of times today we lose creativity because we're doing the mundane, the same office job every day and this and
Mm,
that. So when you get an opportunity to get something like this and kind of discover your own methodology or your own exercise or your own way of training for, extended period of time, like that's when you're having to exert and bring about new neurons firing in the brain, right? This is called like entrainment, so to speak, right? Like this is you
right.
working your creative brain, your creative muscle, your brain muscle, So yeah, it's interesting, very interesting.
That's right. No, I appreciate it, and I think that's a good look at it. And I think to the point too is you mentioned it earlier, is our kind of philosophy is the sustainability and consistency, and that's what it's all about. And and we are a tool, whether it could be a standalone for you or just a complement to whatever you're using. But I encourage you to pursue it, just like Joshua said, of step outside of the box. Not only training your muscles, but your creative side of your brain too, because that's something we neglect too often. So
Right.
multiple birds, one stone. That's the win.
Now, if you don't mind, like, I'll quickly just go over a couple of things that I know I had questions to when I first got this. Right, so I get the isobo out of the pack, and I realize, okay, well, just from looking at it, it mostly looks like a bunch of pulling exercises, right? A lot of pulling,
Hmm.
and pulling is great. Um, and so the first thing I thought was, okay, what about pushing exercises? And what about leg exercises? What about core exercises, right? So I did think that. That's when I reverted to the booklet, noticed that you can cross this, and like
Yep.
work the chest almost the same way that you could push your hands together, right? Like I almost cramped just right now in my chest, just doing that for like a second and a half, right?
I know
Okay,
that feeling.
so yeah, if you're just listening, what I'm doing is I have the this basically it's like an infinity sign strap that
Hmm.
has two handles on the on either end, opposing ends, and or it looks like an 8, and there's a handle on both ends, and you can pull on it because it's not going to go anywhere because it's stitched together very strongly. um and what I just did was I crossed my hands almost like in the Wakanda sign, right? And
Mm.
when I cross my hands and I keep the isobo in my hands, I'm able to now push against either side. So I'm activating my pecs and my deltoids, and and a bunch of other things, probably even my core, depending on how much I want to give effort. Um, but that was some of the things that I wanted to like go over with you because um, you can get creative with the isobo, but then there's also the bullworker, right?
Yep.
And there's I mean, I think we should also talk about that on this show because the isobo is
Absolutely.
one thing, but the ice I mean the bull worker is amazing. So you've got the classic there, right?
This is the classic. Yep. It was out, so easy to grab.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
So
think I think on that note
he's got
of the isobo, and then we'll jump into the classic. I think what's fun about the isobo 2 and all of our products is you're not confined to gravity. And a lot of exercise is all about resistance based on gravity. So you only have one way that the weight is pulling. And then you have to change your angles,
mm,
whether that's lying down on the ground or getting in on an incline bench or whatever it might be. But then with the isobo, when you were doing those chests, you can also flip the handles how you prefer. But so you come with these squeezes, and now you could do these chest circles, right? So now as you're
mm.
still, and you'll just start to feel it on the like sides of your chest, it's just so hard to replicate it with other things that I've tried.
Yeah, and
And you
I
start to,
feel
and
my lats a lot too. I like feeling my lats
absolutely. And then you could take it and you have them in this position here where they're kind of
flat.
more flat, and you can do this range of motion a little bit easier, but you start to feel that whole entire chest, the upper and the lower, really
Yeah.
getting engaged in a way that just hard to replicate. And so, um, yeah,
Well
I
said.
think that's good fun. But then you
Well
have,
said.
I mean, this is called the classic. This is where it all comes from. This is 36 inches long, and again, you have the ability to pull or to push, and again, not confined by gravity. So I think
Yeah.
what you can do with it is pretty amazing, and it again, total body, whether it's minute little muscles from your legs all the way to your shoulders and below. So, but
Yeah.
talk to
I'm
me.
gonna sh-
What do you want to
I'm gonna
know
share
about it?
this. I'm gonna share this screen quickly because
You
the
got it.
cool thing is like there's a lot of examples on the screen on the website. So I'm gonna go to bullworker.com for those of you that are
Yep.
just listening. Um, and I'm gonna show you what is there, which is pretty amazing. And then you'll kind of see what we're talking about. So right here, this video shows that's the ISO flow. This is the ISO, or sorry, the Bullworker Classic. And what's the small Bullworker?
The steel bow.
The steel bow. Okay, so there's the steel bow, there's the Bullworker. This is the it's moving quickly, right? Actually, I'll just go to the products. That's what I'll do. So there we go. So we've got the 36-inch Bullworker Bow Classic, which
And we
is
kind of
what
think of that as like our barbell, a little bigger, a little more
ah
powerful movements capable. And then you move into that 20-inch steel bow, and we think of that as our dumbbell, a little more versatile, a little more opportunity for the movement and travel and kind of muscle targeting.
okay. And then we got the ISO flow, which I really like the ISO flow. I really like the ISO flow a lot.
The ISO flow was a game changer. I mean, when we came up with that, I was like, wow, this is something special because again, the time under tension, the mobility, the convenience and the portability, like, it's just all of these things in one little package. And
Yeah.
every time I bring it out for first timers, that's usually what they comment on is like, wow, it's amazing at how quickly I feel the burn.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, especially like, it comes in that little pack that I pulled out, and and the way that did it was like this here. You get the ISO flow, you get the ISO bow, and you get the booklets, both booklets, and then you get the pouch, the carry pouch. And what I love about that is that, with the ISO flow, at least you can do like bigger ranges of motion because you can extend it.
Mm.
And that's when I found that I was able to do like, almost like a sort of like a burpee or standing overhead press, and
Hmm.
really maximize like full body tension. Like it's amazing. It's amazing. Um, and then what else do we have? Oh yeah, so we've got the ISO flow, then we got the
The bow
Bullworker
basic. So
bow basic.
that's basically your kind of entry level, economical, affordable approach where it's kind of in between. It's 28 inches, so in between 36 and 20. No bells and whistles, no interchangeable springs, but still high quality construction and the same concepts.
Right. Now that's also interesting too, because I do want to show that really quick. So I'm still on the website for those listening and watching. What he's talking about with the springs there. This is what's really cool about the steel bow, and I guess also the Bullworker Classic, right?
Correct.
Both have these interchangeable springs, and and the pouch here, like where you see where the booklet is, there's a little pouch there, a little Velcro strap that houses the springs, and then there's also like a carry strap, which I think is really really cool. And like what I'm showing up here in my screen is this is the Velcro with the springs on the inside like this, which is pretty cool. And then you got your carry strap, and then this is the steel bow itself. Now, one of the questions I do have is,
Yep.
on the website here, and you can see what is this indicator for? This like red line indicator on the steel bow itself.
You got it. So the numbers itself are the power meter scale, and then
Okay.
the ring is the power meter ring. And what's that designed to is a lot of people think like, oh, is this saying kilograms or pounds? And the answer is no, because that depends on the spring. And what it does do though is you kind of mentioned it earlier with isometrics, is it gives you a measurement. It gives you something to understand the force you're applying. And so now you can see, oh, yesterday, let's just use this as an example. Yesterday I got it to 40. Now I'm up to 43 or 45 or whatever it might be. And then 2 weeks from now, I'm up to 60 or so on and so forth. So assuming you're keeping the spring constant, now you have a measurement, a gauge that you can see your output and your increases. And so that's what that's designed for. And then it also gives you just the ability to hold that isometric hold and try to maintain with where you're at. Because as we fatigue, we start to release. So it just gives you
Right.
that little extra mental appearance of like, oh, I got to keep it where that ring ended up. And then that'll help you kind of with your training. And then we've also used it in a study at one of the local community colleges where we use that as our max indicator. So I mean, we've when you put the hard spring in these, they're pretty hard. I mean, we'll go to some big time bodybuilding gyms, and it's fun, man, to get these huge, just super strong, well built bodybuilders with that hard spring, and they're just like, "Ah," and they can't get it.
It's
And
hard.
then they're like, wow, that thing isn't a toy. And so
Yeah.
you'll put whatever spring you need in, and you could use this to gauge your max. So now let's say I'm doing a lat pull down and I'm like, all right, that's about my max. And I look at it, I'm like, okay, 140. Well, now 2 weeks later, I could look at it again and I'm like, oh, okay, I beat it. And so and that feels good knowing that you're
Yeah.
progressing, seeing that effort.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for that. Um, it's really cool because while you were talking, I kind of left the website up and was scrolling through some stuff so people can see the different movements that we were talking about and can see the different options. At the bottom there, at the very end, I showed that you can also get the ISO bow by itself, which is probably the lowest entry point, which is amazing because if you apply a discount to any of this stuff, which we'll give you at the end, it makes it very reasonable. And then you could do like I did, which is start out with one of them, and see what you think, and then go to the next, and then build up, and then if you really want to go crazy like I did, go for the power pack. um,
Absolutely.
yeah, so the power pack includes basically one of each of all of the tools that we discussed, right?
Correct. That's going to be your best value, everything together at a discounted rate. And on that note too, is our whole goal here is to help enhance people's quality of life. And so our goal is not to sell something that people don't want and they're like, dang, now I got stuck with this product. So we stand behind our 90-day money back guarantee too. So for those listening, if you want it, like Joshua said, if you want to give it a go and you want to start small, you want to go big, whatever it might be, we stand behind it. So if it's not for you and it's not for everyone, sometimes we do get some returns. And if it's not for you, send it back. We'll get you that refund and hopefully be able to help you along in your journey somehow, some way.
That's beautiful, and I love the integrity there. And again, like I stand behind this as well. Like I think people understand that I don't just bring people on to sell products or to make it a commission or anything like that. Like I I've been using Bullworker stuff. Well, I mean, at least for 2 years, and and then again back to my original story at the beginning, it didn't dawn on me until I started researching where the ISO bow and ISO flow comes from. It's a part of Bullworker. So then I looked into Bullworker and I'm like, oh, that's that thing that my dad
There
had
it
or that we
is.
had when I was growing up, right? So I've been a believer in this for quite some time, but at least definitely for the last 2 years, I've been focusing a lot on isometrics. And if you've been in my orbit, whether you're a client of mine or just a friend of mine, you chances are, if you've ever been to my apartment, chances are you've used some of my devices. And one of the easiest ones to kind of get anybody involved in is isometrics because you don't have to really change your clothes. You don't have to worry about
Yep.
sweating unless you go really crazy. You don't have to worry about injuring yourself. It doesn't matter if you just ate or not, right? It's just kind of like, hey, can you do it for 6 or 7 seconds? Like, okay, just do it one time. And like this, like every time, a snap of a finger, like the mood changes, usually for the better, right? Because you're not focusing on how your day, if you had a shitty day or not. You're not focused on, what are you going to do tomorrow? In that moment, you're like, whoa, this, I really felt that. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
it is. It's one of those things until you feel it. You're like, yeah, whatever. How good can it be? And then you do it, and you're like, whoa, there it is.
yeah. So then what do you, because, I want to start slowly wrapping it up, but what do you see the company doing in the next few years, and like what's on the horizon? You guys have anything new coming out, or
Yeah,
what does
no,
that look like?
great question. We do have a couple new things that are, I mean, it is amazing how long these things take. We've been developing this next product that we're super stoked to launch for close to 3 years now. And that's just 3D engineering and drawings. And then you jump into prototyping with 3D printing and everything. And then you get the tooling made, and then you get the first run and you tweak it. And so it has been crazy how big of a duration, how long of a duration this has been. So we're excited for that one to come out. We, there have been no leaks in the sense of what it is. So all I can say is uh, it's going to be a bullworker in the traditional sense, and it's going to be pretty sweet and special. And then we've got a little iteration of the isobow. I think that will help improve its use case and still keeps everything simple, because that's what we want. We want simple, because when things get complex, that's when it gets difficult to do. Things break, so on and so forth. So we got two new
Mm,
products coming out on that front, and then I mean, my goal is listen and continue to grow. So as people share what they're facing and challenges or feedback on how to improve the products, that's what we do. Every time I go to update, I'm always looking at, okay, where can we even improve just minor little things. At this latest edition, we went to aluminum because we realized it's going to be more corrosive resistant, lighter, just as strong, and a little sleeker. So, and then it creates a little smoother action too. And so that's where we are for the product side of things. But I mean, I'm under the realm of crawl, walk, sprint. I don't hit the ground sprinting and then look back and say, okay, what did we do? And so I'm a little more conservative on that approach. But I think we got a lot of fun stuff coming with Bullworker TV, various ways to use our gear and calisthenics and body weight with various ways of various goals, whether that be strength training, power, whether that be physique, mobility, flexibility, whatever it might be. So I'm really excited for that. And then I think now that the world is continuously opening up again since COVID, I think it'd be really cool to start building some international, um, maybe say retreats or something like that along those lines. Where I mean, we've got users all around the world, and it'd be fun to get them together. I mean, we say Bullworker builds bridges, and we mean it. I mean, we have people in our Facebook group that come from all over the world, totally different backgrounds, and I mean, you got to imagine some people in there have had biases that they didn't like certain types of people, and now they're together in the Bullworker family, helping each other out, and that's why we say building bridges. So I think
mm.
it's so much fun, and I think that's what we have in store, and hopefully a little, our app right now is a PWA app, so it's good enough. But hopefully we're looking at developing a little more of an interactive and engaging app for people to use and leverage, and that would just be another piece of the Bullworker TV. But our ears are and our eyes are open, so anybody with feedback, we welcome it.
Yeah, I look forward to continuing the conversation because I get excited, um, when it comes to watching people grow and watching companies grow. And I love to throw around the phrase "all ships rise with the tide," and
Hmm.
I certainly feel that there's a lot of synergy with us. And I want to do my part in bringing this to the world, or at least bringing it to my world, to the people that like enjoy my content. That's why I wanted to have you on the show, because I see that it's still not as understood as we understand it. And so
Sure.
if we can help just a handful of people, I mean, I gave this to my mom, my dad, my whole family. I gave one of these to my whole family, and it's
Oh, I love it.
like for me, it really is one of those things where it's like, well, a lot of times we're thinking about what can we get someone for Christmas or for their birthdays, and a lot of times we get useless stuff like toxic chemicals like cologne and and bad food and all these things. But how about we get them a $20 ISO bow, or or
Yeah.
or or splurge and go to the to the power pack or a combo pack or of something, But it's like I want people to message me and go, "Oh my goodness, this thing you gave me is amazing." you know?
I love it. Absolutely. And I think you nailed it too. I mean, I mentioned we have people from all over the world and budgets from all over the world, right? And I think that's one of the things we want to too is we want to keep everything affordable. And
Yeah.
sure, there's going to be different end products that are going to get a little more expensive. We like to still think that they're very much affordable, especially if you look at modern prices and memberships and everything. But like you said, the $20 ISO bow, and I'll be the first one to tell you, is a system works altogether wonderfully? Absolutely. But the ISOBO truly is a standalone product, and it's $20. And so that's what our goal is to keep the opportunities affordable for anyone and everyone out there.
Well said. Okay. Um, so when we get to the end of the show, we start wrapping up. I like to ask 2 questions. And the first question is, Chrisman, what are your top 2 pet peeves?
Ooh, pet peeves. So I think just out of the gates, one of my pet peeves, it's more so um, like when I was living with people, dishes in the sink. Dishes in the sink always drove me nuts. And I get it. A lot of people are dishes in the sink people. But for me, I'm like, yo, rinse it and throw it in the dishwasher or give it a quick hand wash because that sink's got other purposes than piling up. So I think that's a
Well,
pet peeve.
what's funny? Sorry to interrupt, but what's
Yeah,
funny
go.
about that one is a lot of times dishes in the sink, when that's something that gets under your skin, it's usually on account of someone else, right? Because
Absolutely.
I'm because I'm the same way, so I get it. It's like a lot of times people, we're all busy, we have our thing or whatever, but when I watch someone cook and eat and just sit there with their stuff, or they go and put it into the sink and then rinse it, it's like it doesn't take very much more time to just clean it,
No,
because you're gonna have to clean it at some point, or you expect me to clean it at some point. I'm not doing it.
exactly.
I'm not doing it. So I have mastered the art of being able to cook amazing meals with literally one pan, one plate, and one utensil. And the recipes are in the back of my book. So
Love it.
yeah.
Love it. I think
Yeah,
that's
I do that
huge too,
because
right? Is
I do it because I don't want to have to wash too many dishes, right? And so if it's one of each, easy. But anyway, yeah.
done. And cooking home good cooked meals. I mean, I think it's not only beneficial from the nutritional side and you as an individual, but I find it kind of meditative to cook too. And I'm with you. I'm like, okay, knife, cutting board, skillet, plate, done. And then
Yeah.
the reality is too is like the skillet and the cutting board and the knife I'm not putting in the dishwasher. So if I'm doing 3 out of the 5, let's just do the other 2 and be done with it.
Bingo. Bingo. Yep, exactly. Okay. That was a really good one. Thank you for that. What's
You're
another one that
welcome.
comes to mind?
Another pet peeve that comes to mind. Group chats. When you're like in a group chat and you're like, "Hey guys, we're gonna put together this fun event on Friday at 3:30. Let us know if you're in." And then it's just crickets. And it's like, "Oh, come on, like have a backbone. Tell us like you're in or you're out. Don't just like make us wait till 3:20, and then you show up and we're like, wow, we weren't expecting you. But
Right.
I think that we all
Oh
hide when we're
man.
disguised in a group chat. We're like, oh, well, I don't have to be the one that says no, or
Right.
and so
Right.
I'm a planner. I like to plan things, whether it's a trip or whether it's an event or whatever it is. And so group chats are handy. But then you throw it out there. I mean, Thanksgiving was just happening, right? So you throw it out there. You, hey, doing a Friendsgiving, just getting a head count. Let me know if you're in. Crickets. And it's like maybe I'm old school where it's like, hey, cricket is a no. It's just a polite way of saying no. Maybe that's what it is. But
Well, the beauty of this show, if I must say so myself, is when I ask that question, chances are the people that interact with you the most, or that like interacting with you, or that want to see what you're up to, when they see that you're on an interview and they get to this point, hopefully they make it to this point, they know how to best interact with you better, right? So,
oh well, in that case, I
uh,
need to switch them up. No, switch up my two pet
yeah,
peeves.
right, yeah, but I like to do it because it's like when I bring someone into the show, of course we talk about their background, we talk about the companies or the products or the services or whatever, but then I also want to get like this real human side of it, because I'm a big fan of sociology, and I love how people work and how things work, and I love to understand what makes people tick. And so one of the best ways for me to ultimately be the best I can be for other people and for myself is to understand as many people as I can, and it
Mm,
starts by asking those questions. So um
powerful.
yeah, yeah, thanks for answering that. um Okay, so my last question, and maybe my most favorite and most beautiful response that I usually get, is, what is something you're most grateful for?
Man, that's something that I mean, gratitude is something I try to practice all the time. But I would say, as cliche as it is probably grateful for the experiences I've had. And that's kind of a little cheater question, if you will, because I've had a lot of experiences with um, all kinds of stuff, whether it be friends and family or kind of traveling around or whatever it might be. But I'm most grateful for the friends and family that have created those experiences, because I'm with you. I enjoy people. I like to understand people, and people open up doors for people, and that's figuratively and literally. And so I'm very grateful for the people that I've been able to surround myself with, who have continued to help me develop, challenge me, share the love of appreciation. And here's something fun. I think you probably have experienced it. I think a lot of people have. Is it is funny because friends and family that you're closest to tend to be the biggest doubters too. And so it's like, hey, I got this
Mm.
new idea and I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna do this. And I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, are you sure? I don't know if you can do that. And so that kind of helps motivate too, right? But then you have the other friends and family that are like pushing you, like, no, don't worry about what Uncle Joe says. You gotta go for it, man. You gotta make this happen, and I'm gonna make it help happen with you. I'm gonna help you out. And so just having a huge community and tribe around me to continuously help me grow to be who I am, but also to go where we're going.
Wonderful. I love it. Okay, well, for the listeners and for the viewers, what are some of the best ways to kind of keep track of all things bull worker, and even some of the things you're doing yourself personally?
Absolutely. I would say bullworker.com is the site. Um, Instagram, we would do Bullworker Fit. We try to keep Bullworker Fit across the board. So Bullworker Fit on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I think we did score Bullworker on YouTube, but all of those social media handles, it'll be Bullworker Fit or Bullworker. And then as far as connecting with us, we love hearing from you. So whatever channel it is, shoot a question or feedback our way, and we're always happy to help. As far as the individual side, I think the Instagram is probably where you'll see the most, but I kind of don't post too often. I kind of just do my thing on the behind the scenes. But Chrisman underscore Hughes is where you could find me on the personal side. Catch up with a lot of different adventures and kind of the way I live my lifestyle. And that's kind of what I train for. And then as far as the company goes, we're continuously growing, and maybe we'll develop some new platforms to keep up with us. But the Facebook forum, the Bullworker Fit group, it's a private group, and that one's a good one for people that want to jump in, because fitness can be hard. Fitness, a lot of people don't want their fitness journey being public and stuff, but a lot of people need that extra motivation. And
Right.
so it's a very welcoming and positive experience in that Facebook family. And so if you want to jump in there and share a little about you and what your goals are and everything, it's a lot more inspirational and motivational when we're all working at them together.
That's right. That's that group chat you like.
That's it.
Yeah. And for anyone listening, I will say, Chrisman is right when it comes to like they're happy to respond. They're very responsive, at least have been with me. And that's why we're here where we are right now, because we connected through Instagram, and here we are doing this, and I certainly look forward to continuing this relationship, and I hope to get the inside scoop on this new stuff you got coming out. Lips are sealed.
I think you might have made it on a list.
Awesome. Okay. So I did promise everyone that I would share the discount code. So for all things at Bullworker, the discount code is JHolland, which is my first initial and my last name, JHOLLAND. And so, of course, I will provide this in the description and the show notes. If you have any questions for me, obviously hit me up. If you have any questions for Chrisman or anyone at Bullworker, hit them up, and stay tuned, because I'm going to start showing a little bit more what I do with the isobow. I did include a video of me doing isobow while I was doing the iso chain. I believe I kind of was doing like a little bit of a comparison. I'll try to dig that up. But you've inspired me, Chrisman, to come up with some new content for just Bullworker. So stay tuned for that.
I'm
Cool.
excited.
All right. Well, thank you for your time to you, Chrisman. Thank you for the listeners and the viewers. Thank you for your time. And as always, this is Josh signing out. Peace.
And Josh, I want to just share real quick with you too. I appreciate
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really dig your approach to fitness, and that just completely open mind of how you approach things, like on a per basis thing, and not a broad stroke. And that you're a motivation and an inspiration. So it was a complete honor to be on your show, and I too am looking forward to building this relationship.
Much appreciated, brother. Thank you so much. All right. And until next time, peace.
Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seat belts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen. Better come give us a minute or two. Open the box up, we giving you tools. Giving your engine the fuel that it needs. Breathing into it, it's autoimmune. Make a connection, we're stronger in two. Making us one of a kind of a few. Work on the mind, but show me your moves. If you do what you say, you know what to do. Yeah.
Simply walk the talk.